Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dave, and today I'm talking about a film called Fur. This is an indie horror comedy, and it is written and directed by Josh Graves. He is a film director. I know that I've heard his name attached with a ton of different films. One of the ones that's more memorable is the film Late Checkout, amongst a ton of others. So make sure you go check out his other films. But to start off, I just want to give a big shout out to our buddy Jeff Dakota, who's been on the show and is also a fellow New Englander, being in New Hampshire, comes to our movie nights, all that stuff. Great guy. But he connected us with this film. And then Daniel John Kearney and Josh Graves also want to give them a shout out for giving us this exclusive preview of the film for me to even be able to discuss it with you guys. So, Fur is a story of a person dressed as a bear, and they're just going around killing all willy-nilly. And there's a little backstory to the bear that we get further on in the story. We do know that there's some kind of comet that's hit and all this other stuff, but the person dressed as a bear, we later find out, is maybe not as human as we would think. So I won't go into spoiler territory and be very careful of that because I want to leave a little bit to the imagination. But essentially, this is a super silly horror comedy, which reminds me of something that I would see in like early 2000s indie horror comedy. And it's also like very trauma-esque. So if that makes sense to you guys, just follow me on that one, please. But it definitely reminded me of some of the trauma movies that are just so over the top, ridiculous, but also just like so much fun to watch and just kind of make you laugh. It's very raunchy, and almost like slapstick in some aspects. And ultimately, like this film's main mission is to make you laugh. And if that's what you're looking for, then this film is right up your alley. It's heavy on the horror comedy tropes, like ridiculous characters, sex, nudity, and just amazing one-liners and gags. So it's heavy on all that stuff. And the one-liners themselves though are like so classic. There is some great lines. One of my favorites came from our buddy Jeff Dakota. uh, he says, tell me a bedtime story, Teddy Fuckspin. So that line was perfect. Perfect delivery. And as well as like one of the opening scenes, there's this actress Mouse Cravensworth, who's very nice to look at. She has some intimate moments with the bear, and while making bear puns throughout, which for the sake of any younger viewers, I will leave that to the imagination and not say them out loud. But it is definitely something that gets the movie off on the right foot right away. I also have to say that in this film, there's like, I mentioned like the ridiculous characters, but one of those ridiculous characters happens to be the sheriff's sidekick. And he just plays this straight but ridiculous role. It's like it reminds me of Officer Dewey, but if he was playing like this like really dumb, like super serious version of himself. And at one point he finishes making love to someone, and it's kind of known that he only lasts for 8 seconds, and he takes that as a compliment and just keeps making comments about how he gave her the business and all that stuff. And it's just very fun and funny, and not a film that ultimately just is making fun of itself and just not taking itself seriously, and just playing around with everything that it can. Essentially, I think that this film is one that is best watched with a group of friends, and also would pair well with, for me, it would be having some beers with friends and enjoying it. But it's definitely a stoner like movie. So if that's your vice, then go to town and put this film in and get some friends together, and you're gonna have a good time. You guys are gonna have some laughs, and just kind of like enjoy how ridiculous the whole thing is. And I will share, just for some authenticity here, just so I don't come across as if I'm championing a genre that I have openly talked about, like not being necessarily up my alley. So I often say like horror comedy is just, it's not one of my like preferred subgenres of horror. But with that being said, I do love to laugh, and I've also been a fan of Trauma for ages. So as I mentioned before, this is very Trauma-esque, in my opinion. It reminded me of films that I've watched under that label. And while this isn't a Trauma movie, it definitely had so many elements of it and influences of it. So I'm able to still enjoy the subgenre and appreciate it for what it's worth. And like this film genuinely made me laugh. There was like I said, just some great lines, some funny characters, super silly. And I just, knowing that as you're going into it, I think helps kind of get your mindset for it. So with that being said, the movie is really heavy on the comedy aspect. The horror is more of like for visual effect and for story plot line, less scary in nature. So like don't go into it expecting like there might be some jump scares or things that are gonna kind of like make your skin crawl. It's not really that type of film. It's more of just, like I said, funny, ridiculous, slapstick, murder happening. But it's more just kind of like the plot line versus it being heavy on that. So Fur, I don't necessarily know when you'll be able to check it out, but I am gonna say if horror comedy is your thing, if you love to laugh and if you like silly, funny movies, then you got to check this out. So when it does come available, make sure you got your eyes open and you're looking for it, and give this a watch. So again, Fur by Josh Graves. Check it out. Give Josh Graves a follow. Give our buddy Jeff Dakota a follow on social media, and Daniel John Kearney. Give them all a follow so you can get updates on the films and their other future projects. I know our buddy Jeff Dakota is always working on something, so you definitely want to make sure you're following all of those guys to see what their latest stuff is, and support indie horror. It is so important. So many great things have come out of indie horror, and you never know what's going to be the next craze like this. So it's so important to like be a part of it and support it, and just champion it. So that's ultimately why we always make sure to kind of keep you guys present on the indie horror scene. So for us, that's really important, and we hope that you guys are all a fan of that as well. So Fur, check it out. Let us know your thoughts when you get a chance, and I will see you guys later. Have a good one.